Hello everyone, I'm Cameron Manuel Burns, reporter for FinTech Futures here at Sibos in Frankfurt, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Katja Lehr, the EMEA Payments Industry and Advocacy Lead at JP Morgan. Firstly, welcome, and I know we've only just started the conference, but how are you enjoying it so far?
Well, it's busy. It's long ways, so 4 or 5 hours into it, and I already wish I had worn different shoes. But yeah, it's so far so good.
No, I understand you, even about the shoes. So later on in this week, you're speaking on a panel about regulation in payments and whether it's a catalyst or constraint. But for those who aren't lucky enough to attend, what's your take on that, and what are the key takeaways that you're going to be taking from that event?
Well, let me start with saying that regulation is complex, and not to take regulators and say, oh, they are all in a tough spot. But honestly, when I look at a regulation, it has to balance different outcomes. It has to balance different objectives, and it's not easy to manage and balance out these different objectives. So give you an example. SEPA instant regulation. On one hand, the regulator wants us to be fast and wants us to be efficient. But at the same time, the regulator also has to make sure that we are not only fast and efficient, but that we are also safe and secure. So it is always finding a balance. And I totally believe that on the major topics, and not even on the major topics, but I think on the greatest extent, the industry is in agreement with the regulator. I don't think that we are necessarily too far apart. What I do believe will come out of our session, of our panel on Wednesday, is that we're all in agreement regulation is here to stay. It's not going to go away. Regulation will also in the future need to be able to balance out the various objectives, the various requirements. But I do believe what we will be saying is that we need to learn to even better collaborate. Today, we are involved, when I look at the overarching picture, at consultation phase. So when the regulator reaches out and says, oh, what do you believe a given regulation could do better? Where are your challenges? Or if it's a new regulation, what do you want to do? But usually that's when it stops. So we need to be continuously involved. I do also believe that one of the topics which will come up in the panel is that we are looking for an outcome-driven regulation. Most of the regulation is not only telling us what we have to do, but how we should do it. And I think in a world where technology changes so fast, we need to be more outcome driven. Tell us what to do. We will decide how we want to do it. The other aspect, I believe, specifically from a European perspective, is that Europe has a tendency to look at the consumer. Most of the payments regulations are about consumer protection, and that is great. But then what we do is we take the consumer regulation and make it also applicable to businesses. And that's where there is such a big convergence, where we say, oh no, what works for a consumer does not necessarily work the same way for a business. And I think these are the topics where we need to engage and work much closer with the regulator than what we have done so far.
Super. So in what ways would you say regulation presents an opportunity for banks, and how could regulatory harmonization help drive payments innovation in the EMEA region?
So when I look at regulation, in essence, I think we are all in agreement that it's good to have regulation, and that it most probably drives the major points everyone agrees with: level playing field, consumer protection. All of these are good things, and the intention is great. Where we are struggling with when we, for example, look at Europe, is that we do have directives which need transposition in local law. That's where we see the nuances happening. We know that we're seeing now more and more of these directives being pushed into regulation, which is really good, because it does take away the opportunity for gold plating, which is what everyone struggles with. Now, we need to do more. We need to keep working on harmonization, because at the end of the day, when you have to implement all these different nuances, or what we call the gold plating, it's very costly, and it actually takes away the opportunity for innovation, because everyone has only so much budget, has only so much money to actually spend on development and on innovation. If we have to spend this money on just making the same product work across Europe or across EMEA, then we are actually hindering innovation.
Well, that's great. Thank you. So, how can we foster more effective partnerships between regulators and market participants to ensure that regulations actually drive innovation rather than hinder it? And are there any successful models of this collaborative approach that you've observed?
Yeah, so I think similar to what I've already said, a regulation is a framework, and a regulation should express the outcome, what is being required, how it should look like. It should not necessarily tell us how to do things. And this is where we have a lot of opportunity, especially in today's world. Technology changes so quickly. When I think about PSD2, when PSD2 was created, blockchain wasn't even a thing. So we need to make sure that we are that regulation is setting the framework and telling us what it needs to be, but not how it needs to be achieved. That's the first thing. And then from a partnership perspective, I mentioned that we are usually being included in consultation when new regulation is being drafted or existing regulation is being updated. But that's usually where the involvement then stops. But we need to go to the next level, not only with consultation, but also afterwards, when the law is being drafted. We should be involved. We should be explaining impacts a certain regulation or an article drafted in a certain way then has on the industry. It's to me a continuous collaboration, a continuous working together rather than at the start, then never again, and then the implementation.
Super. So, how do you see the balance between regulatory standardization and allowing room for market-driven innovation in achieving the G20's objectives for faster, cheaper, and more transparent cross-border payments?
So for me, there is two sorts of regulatory and more technical requirements. So when we talk about ISO 20022, for example, for me, this is actually nothing we should compete on. For me, ISO 20022 is basically the rails we are all driving on. It is very unlikely that we have clients who will only bank with one bank. They will always have more than one financial institution they work with. So why would we actually compete on the language we are speaking? So I truly believe ISO 20022, it's more of the technical standard, and it's great if you're all speaking the same language. But on top of the rail, we can and should be able to build our own products. Yes, there's regulation, no question about it. There's policies we need to follow. However, that should then enable us to be innovative and to differentiate ourselves between the various players in the market. So yes, to certain, it's nothing wrong with ISO 20022 or technical harmonization. And then when it comes to regulation, it needs to be built in a way that we can still innovate on top of it. And G20 for me is a good example. G20 is a political requirement, fast, transparent, cheap cross-border payments. But when you see what happened when G20 made that announcement that this is what they want us to do by 2027, we actually had the Financial Stability Board, so the FSB, and the BIS picking up the topic and bringing the authorities, so the public sector and the private sector together. So it can work. There's nothing wrong with the technical standard. On top, we have hopefully regulation which is so flexible and only a framework so that we can build innovation on top of it.
Well, super. So different jurisdictions have varying approaches to payment regulation. But what are the challenges of navigating this, and how does JP Morgan approach its strategy when it comes to developing payment solutions across different markets?
So let me say one thing, whether politically correct, I'm not sure. But the good thing is regulators do like to copy. So what we are seeing happening in one country is usually over time being introduced in another country as well. So that plays actually in our favor. But overall for JP Morgan, we've been around the block a bit. I don't want to call us old, but we have been in the market for a while. We are processing roughly $10 trillion worth of transactions a day in 170 countries. So for us, it's kind of a lifeline. We need to be able to anticipate what change is going to look like. And the way we are, for example, building our products, we are actually looking at, okay, we need to build in a way it's flexible, adjustable, because we do know that there is one country doing it in one way, and another country will have requirements which are slightly different. So we anticipate it. So we are building as flexible as we can. The other good thing is when talking to policymakers, I usually feel pretty good about it because the chances are that we've already seen it in some other countries, what a regulator in any given location now tries to do. So I think helping being a global institution which is local helps building the products in a way that we can actually not rebuild and have to reinvent every time a regulation change in a given country.
Great. So how are you balancing the need to maintain existing infrastructure while simultaneously reimagining business models around blockchain and interconnected payment systems?
I don't think this actually is an either or. I don't think that now that we have a new technology, blockchain, DLT, that everything we've done in the past, we're going to throw out. If I think about the industry, I don't know for when actually we introduced the check, but it's been long time ago. We still write checks. But in the meantime, we went from checks to cards, to online banking, to instant, and now we're 24/7. So yes, it's new technology, it's new opportunities, but I don't think that we're going to rip out everything we have done today and replace it with something new. I do strongly believe that it's actually, we are using the new technology, the new products and opportunities to complement what we already have. And we're listening to our clients. What do they really need? And that's what we're then going to do with the new opportunities, with whether it's DLT, artificial intelligence. We have a lot of new topics, and that's what we're then going to do. We just merge this into our existing products. And I don't believe that there's going to be just one solution. When I look into my wallet today, I don't have only one payment method. And I adapt to wherever I am, to whatever business I'm, whether I shop online, whether I'm at a point of sale. And I don't think that this is going to change just because we have some new toy.
Super. So to finish off, last one here, how do you see payments evolving as we move forward, and what should established banks like JP Morgan focus on to ensure they remain at the cutting edge of payments innovation?
So I don't think necessarily this is a question between an established organization or a new organization. I think JP Morgan has been, as I mentioned, around for a while, and we have always made it our point to be agile, to be innovative, to listen to the market and to adapt. And I think this is true whether it's an existing player or an older player, or someone who is new to the market. I think what we have to do is we have to stay humble, we have to stay flexible, we have to listen to our clients, what they want. And from there, we're gonna listen what we have to do, and we will implement what needs to be done. And hopefully we will always be able to do this together with the regulator, together with the industry, and service our clients in the best way we can.
Well, super. Thank you so much for your time today, Katja. It's been super speaking to you and hearing your insights, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Sibos.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.